Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the latest episode of Supernatural, Gods and Monsters. And I think that half of this episode was really good, and then the other half was just typical Supernatural kind of stuff going on. That part has to deal with mainly the Michael situation, but the parts that I really liked dealt with Castiel and Jack, and Castiel and Nick's whole kind of thing. I'm, I really liked what they did with Nick in this episode. I mean, they really delved into his character and gave him some depth and everything and set him on a course that we could get some pretty good payoff if the writers actually do something with it. Same with everything going on with Jack. So, this episode starts off, and we see that Michael is experimenting on people. Since they are bleeding out and he's able to kind of heal them, I think I called it in the first couple bit of the episode that it's vampires, but he bleeds their blood into a cup and then mixes it with Grace and then forces them to drink it, and it burns him out pretty much. And he's pretty much trying to experiment to get the mixture right. You see this pile of dead bodies and everything, and that's kind of where we start. I'm like, okay, is he essentially trying to remake the apocalypse world? Because we saw souped up monsters over there, so is he trying to make souped up monsters over here? What is going on? So, we transition and we see everybody at the bunker. We see Bobby, Mary, and Sam getting ready to go to Duluth because they found mass graves and everything. Joe gave them the tip that Michael would be in that vicinity, and so they're going off there. Cass acknowledges that he can't go with them because he probably set off Michael's angel radar and that he needs to babysit Nick and Jack because Nick's a mess. And Jack then pops up at that point saying that, yeah, he sucked when it mattered most. He's going to try to improve, and that it's even hard for him to look at Nick because of everything that's going on. So they kind of go out on their own. We see Cass then go to Nick, and this is where the beginning of the kind of really cool things happening with Nick kind of appear. We see him just sitting on the bed. We see him getting the flashes of stuff that Lucifer's done and all that. Cass brings him in food, and yeah, you gotta have to remember to eat since you're not a vessel anymore. And Cass doesn't really look at him. It's really effectively done because Nick is so off-put. He's like, listen, I'm not him. He's like, yeah, but you had Lucifer in you for so long that it's kind of hard for them to do that. And he's brought up yeah, I was possessed, Cass. It wasn't me doing those things. And one of the weird portions of this whole story is that Castiel never brings up that he also was possessed by Lucifer. And I thought that they would bring that up at some point, at least in this episode, but I hope they bring it up in the future because that was a big thing of Castiel being possessed by Lucifer and doing all this stuff because he was kind of in the same situation that Nick was in. He was exploited. And of course, Cass has to kind of explain to him why Nick could have been exploited because he doesn't exactly remember it. And talks about how his family was killed and everything. And props to Mark Pellegrino. I mean, he fucking killed this scene because then he starts remembering the things that Lucifer showed him of his dead child and wife and all that. He starts crying. He's like, oh my god, oh my god. And Castiel tells him about how the person broke into their house and killed his family. He's like, no, that's not a man, that's a monster. And because of that, Lucifer was able to manipulate me and make me into a monster. And just seeing him break down like that, I was like, holy shit! It's fucking crazy. I'm like, god damn, you really feel for Nick because he has been through shit. I mean, granted, we've been through all the kind of Lucifer stuff, but having him have to actually deal with this and come to the head of oh my god, that one decision has unleashed all of this pain, and seeing that kind of new perspective on it was very refreshing. My only trepidation is these are the same writers that we have had for so long, and will we get anything out of this? Will we get some kind of culmination, some climax to this, or are we just gonna get, oh, an anticlimax. So I was really excited for that. And we then shift over to the whole Michael scenario and all that. We see that they go and they find the bodies. That's where they figure out that they're vampires. It was interesting seeing the alternate universe Bobby being rusty and everything, saying that he's been fighting Apocalypse for like 15 friggin' years, and he's using all these terms and everything. The mortician is like, okay, whatever. Sam's like, dude, watch out with like all the acronyms and stuff like that. Just be cool. So someone had come in to identify the bodies, and they figure out to go find them after that. That's one of the people that we saw in the beginning. Then we shift over to Cass and Jack talking, and this was another good scene because we kind of see Castiel in these kind of situations acting kind of like a father figure to both kind of Nick and Jack, and doing it kind of Dean style, but still with his own kind of Castiel take on it. Talking about like, because Jack was researching Grace restoration rates and all that, going it could be like a month, and then he's like, yeah, it could be like a century or whatnot. And of course, your human factor throws in all that kind of stuff. And he then does something great, like, oh, because Jack says, you don't understand how I feel. I'm like, yeah, dude, there's the great fall and everything. I lost my grace, I lost my wings and everything, but I still had things. He's like, what'd you have? And he's like, well, I had Sam and Dean, but I also had myself. And here's like the basic without the bells and whistles. And that Sam and Dean weren't born to this either. They've been doing this since they were children, and they've had to learn to do this. They didn't just start with this expertise. And saying that, like, yeah, your past is important, but you gotta also look towards the future and know who you are and all that. I'm like, all right, pretty cool pep talk. So it then starts switching over to the more stuff going with Michael, and he essentially is trying to get the werewolves on his side and be like, yeah, you guys should be rolling over and everything because humans are inferior. Having very big overtones of essentially Lucifer's character having disdain for humans and all that. And also trying to downplay that he's a god or whatnot, since people always assume that he's a god, which is kind of interesting, but not really. And he pretty much traps one of these werewolves to get the head leader. He's like, oh yeah, I'm in for that plan. I'm like, you accepted that a lot quicker and should have looked into, oh, there's like a lot of dead vampires, so you're not the first booty that he has decided to go for. So I really don't understand what his play is here. And it's not even really that interestingly done. I don't really care about Michael's character because there's not much shown. It's not like the situation with Ezekiel and possessing Sam. That was a little bit better done. I think the main issue here is Michael's character and motivations aren't as telegraphed as they should be. Now, granted, you don't have to know all of the character's motivations and monologuing to do that. But when you don't have the basic idea of who the character is and what their motivations are, it's kind of hard to watch. Like, I don't care. There's nothing much to latch on to, because at this point you're like, okay, why is he trying to make super monsters? You're essentially trying to make the apocalypse world, which you said you wanted to do that better. I'm like, okay, how is this going to be better? I don't know. They could have time to fix it and show something big, but I'm not holding my breath. Let us see here. So since Sam and his co got that information, they call into Cass to kind of get the information. Like, hey, you hear about archangels ever screwing around with vampires? And you're like, no, because vampires wouldn't even be on their radar. This brings us into Nick is trying to get information on his family's death, and he's very agitated because there's nothing. And Castiel tries to comfort him and puts his hand on his shoulder, and then he immediately goes into a Lucifer snap gesture, and this really freaks out Castiel. And he's going, why did you do that? Do what? I didn't do anything. There might have been some more residual damage to your psyche than we realized. touches him and kind of gets a feeling for it, and he's like, listen, I'm gonna find my family's killer, and that's it. He goes, but then what, Nick? And he doesn't answer and goes off. Then we get more information on the vamp girl, telling him about like where he's supposed to be. Bobby was about to go take her out, but Sam's like, no, okay, we got the information. Let's leave her be. Nick then pops up again, talking about he's like trying to call the police. He's got no information on it's a cold case. Said that there was a witness, but that they changed their story. Said they saw someone at first, but then didn't. Very kind of strange. Then we get into a really cool discussion because Castiel's going, listen, you've got a second chance. You're not dead. Go for it. And talking about like them occupying bodies and all that stuff. This is where Nick learns that about Jimmy Novak and all that. And he's up front with Castiel. He thinks that he stole the body and that he's just a body snatcher. Because Castiel's trying to explain that Jimmy was happy to do it and that, yes, he's dead. But that's kind of how it went. And Nick's not really buying it. But as Cass is leaving, he says, out of all my thousands of years, what happened to Jimmy and his family is like one of my greatest regrets. We shift over and we see that Jack has left the bunker, which was a strange transition. I liked what they did with this scene, but I'm going, how did Jack get out? I mean, he does have basic skills, but this is like a really dangerous thing. He went to Kelly's parents' place to kind of learn more about her and everything. They do a photo album and all that. He talks about how he was a work colleague of Kelly's, gives information, but doesn't really, he talks about himself, but outside of himself, kind of like a third person perspective, so that way he doesn't tell them that he's their grandson and all that. And they just seem like very nice, caring people, and they're just worried about their daughter. And that was kind of hard for him, and he kind of had to leave. And we find out that Kelly's father's name is Jack, so that's where we get there. But we do get one good scene of Michael that I liked. He gets up to the vampire girl and says, I know that the hunters are here, and that rule number 1, you need bait to spring a trap. Rule number 2, when this trap is sprung, you don't need the bait anymore. And he kills her like if an angel had actually touched her on the head, but he doesn't touch her. He's just looking, his eyes flash, and then her eyes burn out and she's dead. It was really very cool. Kind of refreshing from the usual come up and touch or like throw across the room or anything like that. I'm like, ooh, yay. Just to show and flex his powers. That was pretty awesome. Let's see here. So, we get to the repercussions of Jack and Castiel talking about Jack going and talking to his grandparents, saying that, listen, you're on everybody's radar. You are easy to capture now. He's like, yes, I understand that, but I kind of needed to do that. Of course, Cass kind of relents and says, did it help seeing your family? He's like, yeah, it really did. The nod. I was like, all right, cool. And just how he kind of talks to him about it. He goes, well, he felt bad for not telling them about Kelly and that he was that he was their grandson and all that. But he's like, you did that out of kindness. There are worse ways to be human. Just asks if there's any update on Michael from Sam. He's like, yeah, they're trying to get him right now. He goes, okay, so they're going to kill him, right? He's like, no, we're going to try and subdue him and save Dean. He's like, no, I know this, Michael. He's a bad dude, and we need to kill him, even if that means taking out Dean as well. That's what Dean would want. And it sets up this conflict that usually has been a main conflict of the show. Do you save your family at the expense that horrible catastrophe could happen to the world, or do you save the world at the expense of your family? And I liked how it set it up, but it's pretty much undercut by the end of the episode. Well, depending upon what the writers do for this, of which I have trepidation at best. So that's kind of where we're left off at that. And we see then that Nick is at the witness Artie, his house, trying to get information. He's very agitated with how Artie's like, listen, I thought I saw somebody, but I didn't. And going into, okay, who paid you off? I want justice, and I'm going to get justice. And slams him into this wall and everything, and is very just, he's not having any. He has been given one giant shit sandwich, and he is not taking it anymore. And it's really kind of like, whoo. At first I was like, oh, this character could be really bad, but I hope that this continues. We then get to a fight scene as we return to the scene where Michael was experimenting with the vampires, and then the werewolves pop up, and we get a fight scene I didn't really like. It was mainly towards the end where it was getting, the camera angles were kind of hard to tell, but Silver wasn't working on the werewolves, and they had to resort to decapitate them, and it was like, oh, okay, everybody's alright? Cool. The fights ended, and we see Dean coming in, and he just, leans on this kind of pillar and says that it's him. He then relays that it's like, I'm saying, going, so it's you, yeah? And he's like, yeah, it's okay. Did you force him to leave? Because we'd seen a scene where he was trying to force Michael to leave, and he just was gloating like, no, I own you now. Which, of course, Dean goes like, no, he just left. I'm like, okay, that's awfully convenient when Jack presents this option of, do we save Dean or do we kill Dean? I'm like, okay. But we don't know if this is Michael playing a ruse, so we'll have to see, because Dean says he left and I don't know why. I'm going, okay, well, let's see how this goes. The episode then ends and we see that Nick is bloodied and everything and used a hammer to kill Artie. So either this is showing us that Artie was the one that did it, and he was killing him in the same way that he killed his family, or that Nick was somehow involved and killed his family. I don't know. There could be a lot of interesting possibilities. So I like those parts of the episode. Sam, Mary, and Bobby weren't given much to do other than their usual spiel of trying to catch the monster, which was Michael, and I'm just not digging what they're doing with Michael. I hope that they do something refreshing, but at this point it just seems like a blander version of Lucifer to a degree. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.